Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics.
An iconic building at the heart of jazz history in New Orleans lies in rubble, destroyed by Hurricane Ida. We have the latest from the ground in Louisiana and where Ida is moving to next here on Tracking the Tropics. Hey there, folks. JB Buno here with you live in your hurricane headquarters. Great to have meteorologist Lee Spann joining us here. We're going to have the latest here on what's going on with Tropical Storm Ida here and where the storm is going to be headed next. But first here, I would like to bring in live here from New Orleans, Louisiana, Jack Royer, who, of course, we had on stream yesterday as the storm was moving into the New Orleans area. Hey there, Jack. What's the latest? And you're in front of a really an iconic building there in New Orleans history that has now just been completely destroyed by Ida.
Yeah, that's right, JB. This is the Karnovsky Shop behind me. It's a building that was once a tailoring shop. Louis Armstrong worked here, if you can believe that. This family loaned him money for the first trumpet he ever bought, and then they later turned it into New Orleans' first record shop. We want to show you right next to it. This is a mural that is now destroyed by Ida, as you can tell, with several jazz musicians integral to this city's culture and the art scene here. It's a tough scene indeed, and a lot of people are reacting to it as we've shared this video this morning, I should say. Really sad. You note that power is out. That is true. Hotels downtown are now making people leave this afternoon, saying their generators are simply going to be out of gas and have no ability to help their guests anymore. So that's the situation for my crew as well. We're going to have to find a place to go, but so many people have told us that they came into town for a vacation. They didn't really pay attention to the weather. I guess that's understandable. If you go to a city you're not that familiar with, you want to go to New Orleans, maybe you don't look at the weather until a couple days out, see what you need to bring. They decided to come anyway, and some of them are going to be, they're going to have a long road ahead. They're trying to figure out when they can get a flight, when they can get a train. One gentleman from Cincinnati said he came on the Amtrak train. So he's talking about, how do we get a road out of town? What does that look like? So many questions for those people who are trying to find out the best option at this point, JB. So all in all, those spirits are pretty high, I'd say, for given the circumstances, at least for the people we've talked to. First responders are now able to get out and do the work that they do and go from there. But yeah, just unbelievable, the force of this thing to bring down a brick structure that has survived so many of these types of storms. Ida was the one to do it. Oh, and I should note, right over here by this mural, you really can't see it, a woman that lives here came over and wanted to tell me that the irony was there is a building, a sculpture that was outside of this mural, a separate sculpture designed by a woman named, of all things, Ida. And that woman wanted me to share that with you today to let you know that irony. So a sad situation for sure.
Yeah, Jack, I was just going to note here, the amount of force that would be required to take down a building that has stood the test of time, that has stood through other previous storms that have hit the New Orleans, Louisiana area. It just speaks to how strong this storm was. Share with our viewers, Jack, your experience of where you were when the worst was hitting New Orleans, Louisiana.
My experience, the last time I spoke with you, I was at our hotel. We later moved to a location with a higher vantage point. We did a few reports, I believe, for you guys down in the French Quarter yesterday. Then we moved to a parking deck about a few blocks away where we had a vantage point that we could see some of the French Quarter, some of those buildings. And we just watched as the rain whipped through and the winds. We were shielded by a parking garage structure, but we had a view out the side, and it was incredible. Photojournalist Will Raines and I were just standing there in awe, honestly, of Mother Nature, fearful of what it was going to do. And I was staring out, watching this thing come through, and I watched the power click off in New Orleans, at least in the part that I was in. I'm sure there were other outages, but it was eerie in a sense. You can hear the sound of this thing. The wind is that strong, but it doesn't sound like a blowing wind in your ear. It sounds like almost like a flute or something. It's very odd. So we watched that. We attempted to make our way, once we realized our hotel had no power, attempted to make our way to our sister station here, WGNO. but the roads were heavily flooded. We ran into a little of that. We had to sort of navigate the roads without, by the way, cell service has been a problem. Last night our mapping system wouldn't even work, so it's just it's an interesting post-storm experience, one that could only come in the wake of a hurricane like this. You know, I cover Alabama. I work in Birmingham primarily, and so we're used to tornado outbreaks there more than we are hurricanes, but this thing was massive, this thing was powerful, and this morning people are just sort of out and about walking around to see what they can see what's next, and wait, because it could be weeks before the power is back.
Hey Jack, this is meteorologist Lee Spann. I'm glad that you guys stayed safe through that. It is a terrifying experience, I'm sure, especially being that you're from another state. But you mentioned the flooding. Now, a lot of that flooding, I imagine, was from the intense rain that came down, because the levees, for the most part, did hold. Is that what you're hearing there on the ground?
Correct. There are places where the levees were overtopped, or in some cases, couldn't sustain the water. I don't think any of them gave way, though. At least I've not heard that. The city saying this would be the first true test of the investment they'd made in that system. And given that we're not standing in 4 feet of water right now, in fact, this street is pretty dry at this point, it seems that the levee system did work well.
Yeah, because a lot of the officials had said they put so much work, so much effort into it in the last 16 years that they were confident they would hold. They knew that they may be breached with the overtop because the water would be high, but that the levees themselves would hold. And it was, I'm sure when it was dark, people were worried because you just don't know what's coming in the darkness, especially when you don't have power. But it's good to see that in the light of the day, you were not standing in 4 feet of water.
Yeah, we're thrilled about that too, because it was pretty nasty last night. I mean, it was, Will, would you agree with me? I mean, it was pretty shocking, honestly, to just watch. And then when it was downgraded to a Category 3, just sitting there over the metro, over the city. We're watching the Whitecaps on is that Lake Pontchartrain we were looking out over? I believe so. And forgive me for not having a great geographical reference for this city, having only been here a few times, but just magnificent is not the word, but it is in the sense that it was just a sight to see. Watching this rain fall in every direction simultaneously, hearing the wind, watching the power go out, and then getting down at street level again in the thick of it with people sort of unsure of what to do. And then there are and this is, the toughest part in some sense is the people that you can't help. We see people without a home pushing shopping carts, having a hard time pulling them. I don't want to get emotional, but it's challenging when you see these poor people and you can't help them, and they're in the middle of a Category 4. And what am I going to do? Roll down the window and tell him, hey, you shouldn't be out here right now. He has nowhere to go. So there are people in this city who will need help for various reasons after this, and this is only obviously just the beginning.
Yeah, Jack, I mean, some of the images that have been coming out here of the New Orleans area, other coastal Louisiana communities. We were talking about a lot of those coastal Louisiana communities yesterday on stream, just about some of the areas that were getting hit hardest by the storm. And of course, all of our prayers here from all of us here, all of our sister stations, thinking about all the folks there in New Orleans, all the families that have been impacted by Hurricane Ida, now, of course, a tropical storm. What I'd like to do here, Jack, before we let you go, we know you got a lot to do here in the next couple of hours as you continue to survey the damage, and folks, give Jack a follow on social media as he continues to make his way around New Orleans and scours through some of the areas here that have been severely impacted by the storm. But what I want to do here, Jack, is just kind of throw up a before and after shot here. The left side of your screen is the Karnovsky Shop here in 2011, so 10 years ago, when the building was standing on a normal day there in New Orleans, Louisiana. The right side of your screen is the video that Jack and Will got this morning in New Orleans. So Jack, have you heard from any folks coming by down this street and seeing the iconic Karnovsky Shop? And again, for those of you just joining us, that is the shop where a young Louis Armstrong was loaned the money that he needed for his very first cornet, and that really spurred, of course, his iconic jazz career. But Jack, has anybody come by this area and just been in disbelief over what they're seeing here with the old Karnovsky Shop?
Yeah, I mean, the woman I mentioned who came and wanted to remark about that sculpture, if we can real quick, let's show, by the way, too, this pizza shop. I don't know if we were able to pan over this far earlier, but look at the power.
And Jack, it would appear your shot might have just momentarily kind of freezed up here. Again, live from New Orleans here, folks, tapping into as many cellular signals as our crews there on the ground there in Louisiana. So it looks like we do have a momentary lapse here with Jack and the team. Jack, if you can still hear us. Okay, Jack, we got you back now. Why don't you were just about to show us the pizza shop.
Okay. Yeah, we may that seems to be a problem for our signal right now. It is very sensitive. So yes, to answer your question a minute ago, people are coming by, they are remarking, they are just kind of seeing what there is to see at this point, and it's really a sad sight. But yes, plenty of people coming by and looking and just sort of taking it all in.
All right, Jack Royer, folks, again, give him a follow on social media if you want to get a little bit more of an idea as to what's been going on here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Jack and his crew, of course, doing a phenomenal job documenting what's been going on here with Hurricane Ida. Jack, to you and your photographer Will, continue to be safe out there. I know that that the storm has passed, but all the best to you and your team there as you continue making your way around New Orleans.
Thanks, JB. We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, let's bring in meteorologist Lee Spann here, you guys, and let's talk about here the very late. We have more damage video here to show you, everybody, but let's talk about the latest here as far as now Tropical Storm Ida. Where is the storm now, Lee? And the worst is clearly behind us, but still a very strong storm here. Yes,
especially you see all the rain on the right-hand side, the eastern side of it, as it moves north through Mississippi. Now, where Jack works is in Birmingham, northern Alabama, where they're going to get clipped by a tropical depression tomorrow. So he's talking about they normally deal with tornadoes, but when you have a storm like Ida that comes ashore as a Category 4, it takes it a long time to sort of transition out of being tropical. So right now it has winds of 45 miles per hour. Within the next 10 minutes, we will get an update from the Hurricane Center to see what the wind speeds are now. But you can see what's going to happen. Eventually, it transitions into an area of low pressure with a cold front and moves out into the Atlantic.
And Tropical Storm Kate here as well.
Yeah, we had a special update from the National Hurricane Center at 9:30 that Tropical Storm Kate had formed. And then we have these two other tropical waves. One that's in the Western Caribbean I'm not as concerned about, and then the one coming off Africa that has an 80% chance of becoming our next storm, which would be Larry, and with clear reason. I mean, we're at the peak of hurricane season. I mean, technically it peaks on September 10th, but you get 61% of all tropical systems in August and September. So we expect this to be a very active time, and it certainly has been. Ida really just expanded in strength so quickly moving through the Gulf of Mexico, and this is the result of a Category 4 hurricane, and one that was on the cusp of being a Category 5.
Yeah, I want to just make sure I have the correct locator here for this video that just came in here a short time ago. We're just starting now really to get in some of those videos there from coastal Louisiana, southern Louisiana, some of the areas that were hit hardest here. So this is some drone video that we just got in here from Metairie, so not too far away from where Jack and Will are there in New Orleans. And you can see here that looks like a relatively tall building here. Okay, so this is our television station. This is our sister station here. Let's kind of put us away here and kind of show our viewers here what's going on. That's WGNO, the ABC affiliate, our sister station there in New Orleans. And look at that, an AC kind of dangling there, and just some of this damage pretty significantly. But this is what we're talking about as far as a storm with Category 4 strength winds. Ida was not a storm to be ignored. It was a storm to be reckoned with for sure.
Yes, and as I mentioned, how quickly it moved through the Gulf of Mexico. It went right over that loop current. It was able to rapidly intensify, but also move very quickly toward shore. So there were some parishes that never even issued a mandatory evacuation just because they just didn't have enough time. They didn't want people then to be out on the roads as this monster storm came ashore. So a lot will be, thought about that and how we can better prepare people even for a storm that moves so quickly. And then the worst thing happened is once it moved onshore, it slowed down. It would be better if it kept that fast forward motion to get on through there, because I know the folks like Jack and everyone in the southern Louisiana, that was many hours. It was many hours of dealing with a hurricane. It took it I think 8 hours before it was downgraded less than a major hurricane. Because what happens is they call it, have an effect they call the brown ocean effect, with basically places like southern Louisiana. There's a lot of marsh, there's a lot of water even in the land, basically. And so it allows, we always say that the hurricanes need the warm water of the Gulf or the warm water of the Atlantic as the fuel. But even when it moves into areas like southern Louisiana, there's still enough fuel to keep that thing from weakening so quickly. So, I mean, it kept it as a category 3 and 4 for 8 hours. That is a long time. As Jack mentioned, it was like that the sound of the wind is unlike what you normally hear, because it goes for so long and it cuts through those buildings, and it has that whistle, almost like a siren, that comes through, and it's terrifying. And then it's dark, and it lasts for hours, and you don't have power, and this is going to be emotionally traumatic as much as it is going to be traumatic to the buildings.
Yeah, and we heard David Yeomans, meteorologist for KXAN, another one of our sister stations, talking about that whistling sound that they heard. He was describing it as almost, he felt like he was on an airfield and listening to a jet engine revving up, because it was just so loud and so unique of a sound. But when you're talking about the worst that Mother Nature has to offer, you're going to hear strange sounds, you're going to see strange sights. It's just what happens when we're talking about category 3, category 4 and beyond type storms.
Yeah, and you also think about, the buildings themselves are creaking, they're moving. And so you're also hearing that. You're also hearing the building that you're in creak and move, and that it can be really terrifying.
We're going to start now a meteorologist Q&A here, folks. Take just a few questions here on this edition of Tracking the Tropics as our crews here in Louisiana and some of the other areas of the northern Gulf Coast survey some of the damage that is coming in now. This is, of course, now the day after Hurricane Ida making landfall, now Tropical Storm Ida making landfall. And again, that landfall occurring 16 years to the day after Hurricane Katrina made landfall in Louisiana, not too far away from the actual landfall spot of where Ida and Katrina, I mean, they were on the same day and making landfall in the same area of the northern Gulf Coast. Pretty eerie, to say the least. But we've activated the meteorologist Q&A. How this works here, folks, you can use hashtag #HeyLee, hashtag #HeyJB over the next several minutes here in the Facebook Live comment section. Even if you just have a comment and you want to say prayers for New Orleans, if you have a question for Lee or myself, what we can do is we can try to answer some of the questions if you use one of those hashtags here in the Facebook Live comment section. We'll do about 10 or so minutes of your questions here live on Tracking the Tropics. But as we wait for those comments and questions to come in, I want to show this one more time, because this is the reason that we went live to begin with. The historic New Orleans Jazz building destroyed by Ida, the Karnovsky Shop. If you maybe you're just finding us on your news feed, or maybe you're just finding us on whatever app or site that we're streaming on right now, and you missed Jack's live report, this is what we're talking about: the Karnowski Shop, the iconic building where a young Louis Armstrong got the money that he needed for his first cornet, that cornet that he would later transform into perhaps the most famous jazz career of any American musician. That shop on the left side of your screen is where that journey began. And on the right side of your screen here is where the same spot, really. That's the building. That's the building that you're looking at there, and it's now in ruins. It's just a pile of rubble, and that's because of those Category 4 strength winds, Lee, that we were talking about all day yesterday. Those winds slamming New Orleans, Louisiana.
And you wonder how a brick building like that can just crumble, and what can happen. Again, I mentioned the length of time that we dealt with hurricane force winds. So, while that building certainly could have stood 30 minutes or a couple of gusts at 100 and 150 miles per hour, sometimes the more it weakens, the more it creaks, the more it wiggles in that strong wind, and it lasted so long that eventually the structure just can't hold anymore. And obviously it's a historic structure, so it also has, the building codes and things are a little bit different for it versus some of the newer buildings. But it's just sad to see it go, not just damaged, but completely gone.
A 10-minute Q&A starts now here with Lee Spann and myself. Use hashtag #HeyLee, hashtag #HeyJB. We'll get to some of the comment section, but we'll start here with this one from Christopher Cole, because you noted it there a bit earlier, Lee, saying hashtag #HeyJB. It looks like the levee system passed a big test, and I think this is something that we're hearing a little bit more about this morning, but the levee system, of course, that with everything that happened, all the devastation from Hurricane Katrina, significantly different is the story here this morning after Hurricane Ida as far as the flooding goes.
Yes, and you know, the state of Louisiana, the city of New Orleans, they put so much work into those levees. The Corps of Engineers rethought them, rebuilt them since Katrina, and every one of them stood up in front of every press conference that I saw and said, we are confident they will hold. Now, again, they mentioned, yes, water may go over the levee, because if the water rises higher than we built the levee, that's one thing, and that will lead to some flooding. But the collapse that happened during Katrina, it was the problem. They failed. They broke down, and then the water gushed into New Orleans, which, as we know, is a little bit below sea level. So it's literally a bowl, and when the water rushes in, there's nowhere to go. And so they built this levee system, and they also, they now say it's inside or outside the levee contained area. So like, you need to know if you live inside or outside that protected area, and if you were inside of it, they were confident and they were correct. I mean, it's hard to get much higher than, a strong Category 4 hurricane. And this, when we went back and evaluated Hurricane Katrina, it actually came ashore as a Category 3. So even though every storm is a little bit different, we know that, this one technically was a little stronger. Obviously, it's not, you can't completely compare them that way. But this was, as Christopher said, a big test. And, I was, when it went dark and the power's out, you hope that the confidence of those officials that said, yes, it will hold, we are confident, we are confident, we are confident, but when it's dark, it's scary out there.
It is. Michael Barr, hashtag #HeyJB, our prayers out to those in New Orleans and all the parts of Louisiana, seeing a lot of comments with hashtag #HeyJB, hashtag #HeyLee, a lot of folks sending prayers for those in Louisiana. Elaine LaPlante here, hashtag #HeyJB, anything out of Homa yet? And there's been a lot of reports coming in from Homa, and that's exactly where we had David Yeomans live with us on Tracking the Tropics, our last stream, which was yesterday afternoon. He was right in it. He was in Homa, Louisiana. He was feeling those 100-mile-per-hour plus wind gusts there, and the damage there in Homa is considerable. A lot of rooftops ripped off of their structures, a lot of debris all throughout the roadways there. Homa got hit pretty hardly.
Yeah, so the thing about Homa, it was technically on the west side of the center of circulation, which would put it technically on the weaker side. And I stress that because no storm is perfect. Every storm has its own little idiosyncrasies. And because of the way that center of circulation moved north, it did put Homa in the western side of it. So you would normally think that on the eastern side of it, of the eye wall would be the strongest. Well, this one didn't act that way. In fact, some of the strongest winds were on the northern and then even some of the northwestern side of that eye wall, and that is what went through Homa. So while many of the reporters went to Homa because it was like, okay, this is going to be on the weaker side, it's still going to be close to the eye, but we won't be in the worst of it. Ended up being, unfortunately, in the worst of it because how close that eye wall came as it lifted north, right into Homa, and the damage is pretty widespread in that small community, and again, it was because we thought it was going to be a little bit on the western side and maybe it would get a little bit of a break. It did not, and that's why you just can't make any assumptions about what a hurricane is going to do.
Folks, we got a lot to get to here, buddy. More content coming your way on whatever app, website, social media platform that you're watching on right now. We have, of course, all of our sister stations across the southeastern United States pooling in here to help out WGNO in New Orleans, Louisiana. And for our colleagues at WGNO, I'm friends with Hank Allen, chief meteorologist over there, one of the hardest workers in the business. And a big shout out to Hank because he was working until he was working some insane hours there, the chief meteorologist for the ABC affiliate in New Orleans, Louisiana. So to everybody at WGNO, and we've been showing you some of the shots, the damage from WGNO, our hearts go out to them. As remember, their job, of course, is to provide you with the information to keep family, friends, everybody safe there in New Orleans, Louisiana, and in coastal Louisiana. So we're going to be, of course, doing everything that we can here, all of our sister stations pooling in to help out WGNO in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we'll continue to have more here, more of the damage reports that are coming in on whatever app, website, social media platform that you're watching on. Of course, part of Nexstar Nation, all the stations in Louisiana, all the stations in coastal Alabama or the Florida Panhandle, all the stations that we have here across the southeastern United States. We have a lot more coming up here in the hours ahead from our very, very hard-working team, including Jack Royer, who's still providing live reports from some of our other stations. He's still there outside the iconic building, the Jazz building, the Karnovsky Shop that was damaged in New Orleans, really destroyed in New Orleans, Louisiana. So a lot more coming your way here, everybody, on whatever app, website, social media platform that you're watching on. We appreciate you spending portions of your Tuesday morning with us. And Lee, really quickly, as far as just where some of the where Ida is heading next.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with, because we're going to be talking about Ida until about Thursday or Friday. So. Yeah. It's going to be a rainmaker. It's going to be a flooding rainmaker for a lot of places as it moves up through the Tennessee River Valley, as it moves toward the mid-Atlantic states like Virginia and West Virginia, and then even up toward New York, and maybe even clipping the southern portion of New England that just dealt with Henri. I mean, it's just going to be a long swath as this area of low pressure with tropical moisture brings rainfall to many, many, many people over the next couple of days. So, yes, we're going to keep our eye on the Gulf Coast, which also includes Mississippi and Alabama, and even into the Pensacola community, but we're also going to see flooding rains well inland, all from this tropical system.
Again, Ida has just persisted here and maintains tropical storm strength even after being now almost 24 hours over land here, coming up on 24 hours over land. The very latest, again, on the app, website, social media platform that you're watching on as part of Nexstar Nation. Big thank you to Jack Royer and Lee Spann spending portions of their Monday morning here with us. I said Tuesday because it felt like
you worked really hard on yesterday. Yes.
Yes, it was a long day yesterday. It felt like 2 days in one. So Monday, everybody, it is not Tuesday. It is Monday, August 30th. Apologies there. It says it there in the bottom right-hand portion of the screen. I have zero excuses to get the day wrong, despite how many hours we work here.
Lack of sleep. We'll say it's the lack of sleep.
It's a lack of sleep. Yeah. Folks, we got a lot to get to. A lot more coming your way here on whatever app, site, social media platform that you're watching on. For Jack, Lee, I'm JB. Thanks so much for joining us here on Tracking the Tropics.
Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics.